Hey, thank you. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the City of Southfield regular meeting of the Planning Commission for February 24th, 2021, conducted via WebEx teleconference. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have a roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Culpepper.
Here.
Mr. Huntington.
Present.
Mr. Martin.
Present.
Ms. Me is excused. Dr. Stevens Gunn.
Present.
Mr. Willis.
Here.
And Mr. Griffiths.
Here.
And Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum to conduct business this evening.
Thank you. And we have a motion to approve the agenda.
This is Commissioner Willis. I would move that the agenda for today's date be approved.
Support Commissioner Culpepper.
All right. Motion by Commissioner Willis, supported by Commissioner Culpepper. Have a roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Mr. Culpepper.
Yes.
Mr. Huntington.
Yes.
Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Dr. Stevens Gunn.
Yes.
Mr. Willis.
Yes.
And Mr. Griffiths.
Yes.
Okay, you have a approval of your agenda.
Okay. Any announcements and communications? Or communications?
Nothing from me at this time.
All right. First item on the public hearings is PSLU 21-0001.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a special land use request of the City of Southfield. The property in question is the Simmons House, which is located at 26080 Berg Road. It's part of the complex known as the Berg Historical Park, which is located on the northeast corner of Berg Road and Civic Center Drive. And the request before the Planning Commission this evening is to allow a professional office use within a publicly owned building on the property. This gives you a little bit of a better view of the Berg Historical Park. The house in question, the Simmons House, is located right adjacent to Berg Road. So if you were to look in the upper right-hand or upper left-hand corner of the property, it is the southernmost building of the 5 buildings that are there. So that is considered the Simmons House, and that is the structure in which the petitioner is looking to occupy for a professional office. As Mr. Matrina had noted in our study meeting a couple of weeks back, the person looking to use this particular location is looking to use the first floor only. The second floor would remain unoccupied. So again, just a single user in the building, and then again, the second floor would remain unoccupied. This is a site plan for the property, and again, I noted the Simmons House that's shown right there. The total square footage to be used is 1,124 gross square feet, and again, that's the first floor. The parking requirements for all the buildings, they have enough parking to support not only this proposed use, but also all the other uses on property should they be occupied. Right now, most of the buildings are not occupied and aren't being used. So obviously that means that there's a sufficient amount of parking for at least this particular use, and then whatever uses are on the property at this particular time. So this is the site plan that we're looking at. We will be doing the site plan review administratively. So there are some things that will be added to the property as part of the site plan review, the administrative site plan review, including some sidewalk connections, some barrier-free signage, bike rack, some additional landscaping. So those are just particular items that we would handle for the administrative review. Right now, the only thing that we are asking the Planning Commission to review is the special land use portion for this particular site. I do know that a couple of weeks ago, we talked about hours of operation for the property, looking at 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then we were also asking, at least with regard to the special land use, that if anything, anything is done to the exterior portion of the Simmons house, because this is a historical site, that they go through the Historic Commission for approval on those particular things. With that, I do know that Mr. Matrina is on the phone. So if you would like to add to this presentation, now is your time to do that, sir.
No, sir. I think that was great. Thank you.
This is Planner Crow to Mr. Macrina. I just want to clarify, are there any hours of operation on the weekends?
Terry, there may be hours of operation on the weekends. I did not get a response to that when I queried. I don't think it's going to be a regular thing, but I'm not the one running the office.
That's fair. I just, before it goes to council, I'd rather err on the side of assuming maybe there's some hours on Saturday or something, just to cover ourselves. So that's just an item that we can follow up with you on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if Mr. Macrina doesn't have any additional comments, we are required to have a public hearing. So if you would choose to open that right now.
Yes, let's open up the public hearing at this time. There is a WebEx call-in number if any of the public wishes to make a comment.
Yeah, I can actually pass those numbers on. The WebEx number to call in on is 1-415-655-0001, and the access code is 129-591-1242. And I will actually go back to the very beginning, the first slide that indicates both of those numbers on there in case we do have someone who may not have gotten those numbers the first time. So as you're aware, sir, there's a little bit of a delay between our live version here and what's on cable. So we will wait a couple of minutes to see if we have anyone call in for the special land use request, this particular one. I'll be back with you in a minute or so.
Thank you.
So again, for the public, if you would like to call in on this particular special land use, 1-415-655-0001, access code 129-591-1242. And Mr. Chairman, we have not received any calls with regard to this particular item.
Okay, thank you. We'll close the public hearing now. Open up to the commission for comments or questions.
To the chair, Commissioner Culpepper.
Go ahead, Commissioner Culpepper.
I'm in favor of this. It does meet the special land use requirements. I just have one question. I know this was presented to the council before, but piggybacking off of what Terry said, judging on who we're going to have in there, what's the protocol for if there are going to be special meetings or special events to be held there. I mean, if a meeting is called and on a Saturday or whatever, um, we just need to be able to know there's something going on other than 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Fridays, not knowing if it's gonna be open Saturdays. But if there's a special meeting or something to be done there, what would be the notification process? I guess that would go to John to find out.
Well, first of all, I would want clarification, Terry. Are you saying that Saturday use is prohibited or it's generally allowed under the ordinance? I thought it was allowed.
Well, because this is a special land use, we quantify the hours of operation. And if we just limit it to Monday through Friday, 8 to 8 p.m., then technically the business is not approved for weekend use. Now, that doesn't mean that the rest of the facility couldn't be used under normal circumstances. And that's why I suggest it might be safer if we added a Saturday hour provision or Sunday. We don't want the residents to anticipate that there's nothing going to happen on weekends because it was approved from Monday through Friday only. So that's why I'm saying, to be on the safe side, some reasonable hours, occasionally that may be used, that's great, but I'd feel more comfortable if the user would provide a possible Saturday hours. It might be 9 to 1 p.m. or it might be something else.
Yeah, if I may, through the chair, I just want to note that the language in the zoning ordinance under the R2 for this particular use, it does state hours of operation 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., but does not give a Monday through Friday or a Monday through Sunday. So there are no days of the week that are noted. I just wanted to make that clarification there.
Okay, any other questions, comments from the commission?
Thank you, Chair.
This is Commissioner Rob Willis. I'm just curious, when will the new tenant take occupancy?
Through the chair, the property is available to them. They're still working from home, so I'm not certain on what their time frame is. I know they need to get a mailbox and probably some signage after this is approved.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else? Any other comments?
I'll just suggest that the planning commission, when they're ready to make the recommendation, they can qualify that it's Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and weekend hours to be determined prior to council. We already have a beginning and end that's articulated in the ordinance, so they can't stray from that. But if we know for a fact that the office will never be used on Sunday, that's just better for the residents around there to know that.
Through the chair, if I could, I think we have to remember that we're talking about a congressional office. Let's say that the congresswoman moves on to another office. We might want the next congressperson to move into that office. That would be great for the city and our residents. And maybe limiting hours might not be the greatest thing to do. I mean, this is a tenant that brings us two benefits. One, obviously the rent, but two, just having this office in our city is a huge benefit. And I hope we'd like to do everything we can to encourage this office to stay regardless of who years down the road is still maintaining it.
Mr. Medina, we agree. I just always look at precedent with when we review other offices and special land uses, there's an expectation from the residential community that you're going to have Monday through Friday hours, occasional Saturday hours, but not necessarily 7 days a week. And if you would prefer, we could go with the Monday through Sunday 8 to 8, and then that could be further discussed at the council level.
I think that would be a great thing to do. I'd hate to I hate to cut out Sunday hours anyway, because there are people who have some restrictions on their weekends, and that is their busy day for the weekend, and some offices are open for that reason. So I try to be considerate of that.
Yeah, so it'd be better if we just frame it in that respect instead of being too short on the days and hours of the week. Mr. Spence, can you go to the next slide that has the recommended conditions? So we'll just, it's clear that the hours of operation are Monday through Sunday, so we're already covered in our recommended resolution. Other than that, you can entertain a motion to make the recommendation, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I was going to say, if there's no more comments, let's have the recommendation from the planning department, and then we'll entertain the motion.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with regard to this particular item, PSLU 21-0001, the planning department does recommend favorable recommendation of the special use request of the city of Southfield to allow for professional office use within a publicly owned building located at 26080 Bird Road, also known as the Simmons House, on publicly owned land located at 23660 Civic Center Drive, also known as the Berg Historical Park, Sidwell parcel 24211000132 on the northeast corner of Civic Center Drive and Berg Road, Section 21, City of Southfield, Oakland County, State of Michigan, for the following reasons and conditions. Subject to approval of PASP 21-0004, administrative site plan review by the city planner. Hours of operation shall be limited to 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Sunday. Any exterior changes to the building must go through the review and approval process with the Southfield Historical Commission. Submitted special use with any conditions recommended by the Planning Department and the Planning Commission will be of such size and character that it will be in harmony with the appropriate and orderly development of the R2 single-family district. The location, size, intensity, and periods of operation of the proposed use is designed to eliminate any possible nuisance likely to emanate therefrom, which might be adverse to the occupants of any nearby permitted use. Proposed use is in accord with the spirit and purpose of the chapter and is not inconsistent with or contrary to the objectives thought to be accomplished by this chapter and the principles of sound planning. Proposed use is of such character and vehicular traffic generated will not have an adverse effect or be detrimental to the surrounding land uses or public or adjacent thoroughfares. Proposed use is of such character and intensity and arranged on the site so as to eliminate any adverse effects resulting from noise, dust, dirt, glare, odor, or fumes. Proposed use will not be adverse to the promotion of the health, safety, and welfare of the community, and the proposed use is designed and operated so as to provide security and safety to employees and the general public. That includes this presentation.
Thank you. May I have a motion?
Yes, Commissioner Huntington.
Go ahead.
Yes, I'd like to make favorable recommendation for PSLU 21-0001.
This is Commissioner Willis, support.
All right, we've got a favorable recommendation by Commissioner Arnington, supported by Commissioner Willis. We have a roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Huntington.
Yes.
Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin.
Yes.
Thank
Can
you,
you hear
sir.
me?
Yep, I can now. Dr. Stevens-Gunn.
Yes.
Mr. Willis.
Yes.
Mr. Culpepper.
Yes.
And Mr. Griffith.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, you do have a favorable recommendation for PSLU 21-0001.
All right, thank you. Next item, we have PZTA 21-0001, text amendment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is a council-initiated zoning ordinance text amendment does cover a number of various chapters and sections within the zoning ordinance, including an update to the Woodlands and Tree Preservation Ordinance, an update to the Wetland and Watercourse Protection Ordinance, the addition of small box retail provisions, and the addition of small cell facilities provisions to the Wireless Communications Facilities Ordinance. And we can go through each one of those separately. So with regard to the Woodland and Tree Protection Ordinance, again, this is just kind of an overview of the changes that were made. I did send you the entire ordinance portions that do have the various areas struck out or added, and those were shown in yellow on the information that I passed on to you. But with regard, again, to the Woodland Tree Protection Ordinance, we're adding some new language, specifically under Section 5.561D. We are adding that the protection is in accordance with the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act and the Michigan Environmental Protection Act. The next item down is the definition of tree protection. We did not have that in the zoning ordinance, and we wanted to make sure that was understood as to exactly what tree protection meant. Section 5.5620 was with regard to the planting of varieties of trees that tend to be more problematic, such as willows and box elders and buckeyes and other really quick growing trees that do cause problems with sewers or heaved sidewalks and street surfaces. Also made some revisions for replacement tree requirements, 2.5 to 3 inch caliper for shade trees, 1 3/4 to 2 inch caliper for ornamental trees, and 7 to 8 feet for evergreen trees. Additional revisions also included that permits would be required for the removal, transplanting, and destruction of any tree 6 inches in diameter or more. That was formerly 8 inches. However, the difference between a 6 inch and an 8 inch tree, while it may be a little bit smaller in trunk diameter, still a fairly large tree by comparison. So we just wanted to make sure that we brought that down in size and made it in conformance with other tree ordinances that are within our area that Noreen in our office reviewed. There were also changes to the submission and site plan requirements. There were also some issues with regard to arborvitae, which tend to be like a small evergreen shrub, as well as other shrub-like vegetation. Oftentimes, in the ordinance as it stands today, we were accepting arborvitae as replacements for trees. However, because they're more like a shrub and not a tree itself, we did want to make sure that if we were going to accept arborvitaes, that we get more replacements for a single tree, a single replacement. So the provision that was added that for every one tree replacement, if someone wanted to use an arborvitae or a similar type of plant type, that would have to be 4 arborvitae or similar for one tree replacement, and that would be at the discretion of the planning director. Also, replacement trees. For years, we have gone by tree for tree, 1 for 1, and other local zoning ordinances have actually gone with 2 replacements for every 1 removed. So we would like to up the replacement counts as well within the ordinance. Under the Wetland and Watercourse Protection Ordinance, we are looking at updates to conform with the state of Michigan's wetland protection. We're kind of way behind with regard to our particular ordinance in how it relates to the state law. So we're basically updating it to be in conformance, replacing MDQ and MDNR with Eagle. There was also a revised definition of wetlands that can be regulated that needed to be changed, some procedural approval revisions, as well as some wetland mitigation requirements. Small box discount retail. This has
Jeff?
been before the
Jeff?
council.
Jeff?
Yes.
And through the chair, do we want to break these down in groups for comments? Or do you want to go all through this, have the public hearing, and then come back based on these separate sections?
I guess that would be, I would leave that up to the chair.
I think you're fine. Just continue the way you're going, Jeff, and we can, if we need more discussion on one of them, we'll go then.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. So again, with regard to small box discount retail, this had been before the council as a concern for these types of uses within the community. The proposal is to amend the zoning ordinance to require that small box discount retails obtain a special land use within certain zoning districts which currently permit retail sales. The proposal includes separation requirements and limits of hours of operation, and the proposal is similar to previous zoning ordinance text amendments that address alternative financial services and smoking lounges. The city currently has 16 such stores, and it's been found that high concentrations of these stores reduce viability of traditional grocery stores, and also there's a negative perception in the area for these types of uses. Definition of a small box discount store is a retail store with a floor area ranging from 5,000 to 15,000 square feet that offers for sale an assortment of physical goods, products, and merchandise directly from the consumer. And you can see the various types of items that could be contained within a small box discount store. As I noted earlier, these would be termed as special land uses in all zones that permit retail, which include neighborhood shopping, regional center, B1, which is our neighborhood business, B2, planned business, B3, general business, and then our I1 industrial zone districts, which would be on Telegraph Road only. The conditions for approval, they cannot be nearer than 1 mile or 5,280 feet to any other small box retail location. Hours of operation be limited to 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. and any small box location approved prior to the effective date of this section shall be considered a legal non-conforming use. We do have a map that kind of indicates the location of existing facilities throughout the city, and then a couple of areas that potentially could have another small box retail discount store, specifically area 1 up in the Telegraph Road and Telegraph, our 12-mile area.
If I could, Jeff,
Sure.
through the chair, I mislabeled how many existing facilities there are. There are 16 existing facilities with 2 potential, but once one goes in, that knocks out the other. So that slide should read 16 existing facilities, maximum 17. Thank you.
Moving on to small cell ordinance. So we are looking to add new provisions to our wireless communications ordinance that we currently have on the book to include small cell wireless facilities. Notably, this provides provisions for customization and branding within 5 city districts: the city center, Centropolis, the DDA, historic districts, and then historic neighborhoods. The reason why we're looking at branding and customization is because generally these are located within right-of-ways, which we don't have, or the zoning ordinance itself doesn't have provisions for. So what we can do, at least, is within the particular districts in which we're in which these particular facilities might be located, we wanted to at least have these facilities match the branding for the area, and I'll go through those in a moment. The particular slide that is currently up kind of gives you an example of some of the facilities that could go in. And you look at the one on the left, that is a rather large pole that is within the right-of-way, directly between a sidewalk and a street. So these are examples of things that we're trying to avoid in the city here. You have the middle one there, which is a fairly large pole with antennas and large equipment. And then on the far right, you have another pole with also additional antennas on top. This kind of gives you an example of other small cell facilities. While those look like small antennas on top and definitely look a lot more appropriate for a residential area or for the areas within our right-of-ways, those units are still about as big as a refrigerator, as it's been labeled through some meetings that we've been in. So these are not small units, but at least it kind of gives you an example of something that we can do through some customization and through some branding in the districts that I talked about earlier. So as I noted, we would be looking at providing for design standards and branding guidelines, and then we'd have certain maps that would reflect those design requirements in the districts that I talked about earlier. So as we look at the districts available, again, I talked about the Southfield City Center, which is in blue, the Centropolis area, which is the 11-mile Inkster area in green, Southfield DDA, which is in the southeast corner of the city, our local historic districts, of which we have 4 of them, and one of those is the Berg site that we talked about earlier with the special land use. And then also 2 national historic districts, Pembroke Estates and Northland Gardens. So the branding of the city center area, this kind of gives you an indication of the types of site furniture that we have in the area and the color scheme. There's some varying logos for the city center area, but basically we're looking at silver and gray metallic. And this gives you an indication of some of the signage and other amenities that we have in the city center right now. In the Centropolis district, the color scheme is green and silver. And this gives you an idea of the type of signage that is actually, I believe, already installed in the city center or in the Centropolis area, including the C's that you see up here just under the branding colors. That has been installed on 11-mile road. And again, the color scheme and the types of signage for that particular area. The branding for the Southfield DDA is black. Kind of gives you an idea of the trash receptacles and other items in that area. In the historic district, the signage that was developed for the districts, those 2 historical neighborhoods. And then finally, for our historic districts, again, we're looking at black fixtures similar to what is at the transit center on the corner of 11-mile road and Lasser Road. And with that at least concludes my portion of the proposal. Terry, I don't know if there are additional comments that you would like to make.
Yeah, I just want to explain to the commission that these slides that have all the design standards and guidelines will be incorporated into a design book that will be approved separate from the zoning ordinance, so that it'll be referenced similar to the Northland design standards. So it'll be referenced in the ordinance, but then it'll give us the ability to make amendments much more easily than going through a 90-day public review process. So in essence, these photos and some of the details will be incorporated into a design standard that'll be part and parcel to your recommendation on the zoning text. And then I've got some specific comments after the public hearing in the Planning Commission I just want to articulate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. This is a public hearing. I'd like to open up to the public for comments at this time.
Yes, so Mr. Chairman, again to the public, the telephone number for you to call in on should you wish to make comments with regard to this item is 1-415-655-0001. And then when prompted, put in the event number or access code 129-591-1242. And again, Mr. Chairman, we'll wait a couple of minutes here, see if we have any public that has a comment on this particular item.
Okay, thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, we don't have any public calling in.
Okay, thank you. Close the public comment section now. Commission, any questions or comments on all the text amendments?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Huntington through the chair.
Go ahead.
Concerning small box discount retail, I guess we're kind of looking at dollar stores. Yeah, I've been noticing a lot of pharmacies opening up, especially like in Detroit, where you got pharmacies stuck in stores, dollar stores, and a lot of odd places. So with that deal, would it make it okay if somebody did have a small little pharmacy in a dollar store? Would that change things?
Through the chair, Planner Crode, the pharmacies would be regulated differently. So they would have to meet the special land use requirements or district requirements for pharmacies. And typically, we've not found small box retail having pharmacies in them. And if you look at the definition, small box discount stores also do not include retails that include prescription pharmacies, sell gasoline or diesel fuel, and dedicate at least 15% of floor area or shelf space. So the pharmacy that you're talking about that also has a retail component to it, that'd be treated differently than a small box retail.
Okay, that makes sense. But I have been seeing a lot of little pharmacies open up inside grocery stores, and I've even seen them in dollar stores before. So, as long as we have a plan for it.
This is Commissioner Rod Willis. Just to take that a step further, it does look like if you manage to open up a prescription pharmacy, you then essentially license a small box discount store, no matter where it's placed. So I recognize there's another set of rules to get you there, but if you get in, the store is now okay. It can be in any place.
If it includes the pharmacy or any of those other things that aren't part of the definition of a small box discount store, then it gets regulated and reviewed under different standards. I don't want to call out any particular brand. But these are the dollar store type of businesses that are just retail, and they don't typically offer the fresh foods or the pharmacy or the other things like a CVS or a Walgreens. So we're trying to distinguish between the two.
Okay.
Understood. Thank you.
To the chair, Commissioner Culpepper.
Yes.
I think this amendment makes perfect sense because what it does is it simplifies the process for all four areas. It makes it easier to number one, to monitor small boxes and to monitor the wetlands, because we've had difficulties with contractors coming in, removing trees, not replacing them with right trees. So this amendment is perfect because it tells the petitioner exactly what they can do and can't do. And I really like the wireless thing because, as I said previously, the optics are very important when you have poles stuck up in neighborhoods, and you want good wireless communication. But regulating it the way we have done with the amendments, I think it makes perfect sense. In the center areas, yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. That optic is much better than having those big poles with the connectors coming out. Right. So again, I think this is great. We know we're going to go to small sales because that's the way to go. But I think this amendment is great. Thank you, Chair. That's all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, through the chair, this is Steve Huntington again.
Yes.
Just a comment about the cell towers. So these cell towers are basically we're looking at the status of how they actually look in the neighborhood and in the city, not as far as any danger as far as physical. Because a lot of people are really concerned about 5G and the power and the waves that it sends out, and if it's dangerous or not. I guess we really don't know for sure, but is that a concern at all for these towers? Is it the safety, physical safety, or is it just the looks of them?
If I could, the cell tower lobby got the state to pretty much exempt local review of small cell in the right of way, with the exception of this very narrow provision that if we have established historic districts or otherwise, we can weigh in on design and color, and that's about all we can do. So they've taken a lot of the local control and review and fees away from the municipalities and put it at the state level. So the all your concerns are supposedly reviewed by the state agencies that grant these license and permits. So we have a very narrow window of what we can and can't require, and we have to stick to these the design and color only within certain districts as identified in our maps and guidelines. But it is, okay, Mr. Huntington, it is the 5G and greater that is driving the need for these facilities.
Right.
I'd like to say nobody wants them, but everybody has a cell phone and is using it, and nobody likes having their service dropped. So we're trying to regulate what we can.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarification.
All right. Makes sense to me. I think. Any other final comments? Do we have a recommendation from the planning department, or that is the?
I have a few things that if I could,
Yes,
Make
please.
some
Go ahead.
comments on. Some of them have already been covered, but I sent you an outline just prior to the meeting. I'm recommending that all references to metric measurements in the Woodlands and Wetlands Ordinance be removed. I know that was big in the 1970s, and I can tell you in my 33 years, I've never had to use metrics, refer to them. It's a struggle for us English conversion people in the ordinance every time we make a measurement change to figure out what the metric is. So since it's antiquated and difficult to use and understand for Americans, I just recommend we remove them all together in the sections that we're dealing with tonight. And then the next set of zoning amendments, I'll recommend removing them throughout the whole ordinance. Under 5.56, the woodlands and tree preservation, Jeff, I think in your outline, you had the D, the protection of natural resources. You go back up to that slide. I think one more. Yeah, the very first new language, we're referencing the Zoning Enabling Act and the Constitution and the Michigan Environmental Protection Act. I just recommend that we add as amended because those things do change through time. The Woodlands Ordinance refers to the director, the Southfield Planning Director, and the Wetlands Ordinance refers to the city planner. Now, the city planner is the definition by ordinance, but when I was brought on, I have a working title of Director of Planning. I would like that clarification in the definitions for both the woodlands and wetlands, and I've provided some wordsmithing. So where it says, just in the definitions, City of Southfield Planning Director, also known as City Planner, and vice versa in the other one. And then on page 4 of the guidelines that I submitted to you, we talk about tree permit, and then we offer, I believe it's, the intent is to offer hyperlink to the tree removal permit. And we can do that, but I think for those who are just using a static hard copy, we should also probably just reference how to obtain planning, the permit through the planning department. On page 8, there's, as Mr. Spence had indicated, 4 arborvitae, and then subject to the review and approval of the planning director. There are some instances where lots of small, and it makes more sense to have arborvitae or other shrubs for screening purposes. But I don't want it to be carte blanche that an applicant can say, well, I can, your ordinance says I can use arborvitae or shrubs up to the 25% of required trees. So I want that extra provision in there. You just have to add the replacement requirement will be at the review and approval of the planning director, something to that effect. Item 16, page 16, again, now we're in the wetlands ordinance, define what city planner is, also known as director of planning. And then on page 17, the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality is now Environmental Great Lakes something. We need to define Eagle and then say, or the equivalent Michigan department, because we got into changing the name because there was a shift in renaming MDEQ to Eagle. So if we say, or equivalent Michigan department, then we don't need to amend the ordinance in the future. On page 34 is just a typo. It says mitigated wetlands be replaced at a minimum of 1.5 new acres of wetland too, and it had the capital I. It should say 1 acre lost. On page 48, there's a reference to small box retail, and it says cannot be located any nearer than 1 mile, 5,280 feet. Should be linear feet. And then I would like added as measured from property line to property line. We had a lot of inquiries and questions under the medical marijuana of where the line gets measured from. Is it building to building or property line to property line? And then that section is repeated on pages 54, 57, 59, 70, and 71. So all those areas should be updated. On page 78 is my last recommended amendment, where it refers to small cell facilities proposed within the following areas shall conform with the styles and color schemes associated with that area. And then I just, as indicated on our slide, as indicated in the City of Southfield sub-areas, design standards and branding guidelines as amended. And then as a footnote, the text that Mr. Spence is showing, that the maps may reflect certain design requirements, and these potential design requirements could include but not limited to color, height, size, separation, and so forth. So those are my recommended recommendations to the draft ordinance, and with your approval, when you make your recommendations, if you can include those amendments, we'll clean up the text and make sure that it's incorporated before it goes to council. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have. Thank you.
Does that create any additional questions for the commission, from the commission? If there's no more discussion, we entertain a motion.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Well, why don't I read the motion and then we can entertain. The planning department, with regard to PZTA 21-0001, the council initiated zoning ordinance text amendment. The planning department does make favorable recommendation for the draft dated 2/24/2021 for the following reasons. Proposed text amendment. I'm sorry?
Can we add as amended?
That was gonna be under the recommendation. Yeah, I'll add that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The proposed amendment will amend Title V, Zoning and Planning, Chapter 45, Zoning of the Code of the City of Southfield by amending various articles and sections of the zoning ordinance related to woodlands and wetlands, small box retail, and wireless communication facilities, and other amendments that may become necessary as needed for the City of Southfield. This amendment specifically addresses updating Section 5.56, Woodland and Tree Preservation Ordinance, updating Section 5.55, Wetland and Watercourse Protection Ordinance, adding provisions related to small box retail uses in Article 13, Neighborhood Shopping District, Article 14, Regional Shopping District, Article 15, Regional Center District, Article 16, Neighborhood Business District, Article 17, Planned Business District, Article 18, General Business District, and Article 20, Industrial District, Telegraph Road only, and adding provisions to Section 5.58 for small cell facilities to the Wireless Communication Facilities Ordinance, and any other amendment that may become necessary as needed for the City of Southfield, and that this approval of this recommendation is subject to the amendments as made and explained by the city planner. And that concludes this presentation.
Thank you. May I have a motion from the commission?
To the chair, Commissioner Culpepper,
Yes.
I recommend favorable approval for PZTA 21-0001 with the amendments so spoken by the city planner.
Commissioner Huntington, support.
Okay, thank you. We've got the recommendation for approval with the amendments by Commissioner Culpepper and supported by Commissioner Huntington. And then we have a roll call vote.
Yes, sir. Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin. Dr. Stevens Gunn.
Support.
Mr. Willis.
Support.
Mr. Culpepper.
Support.
Mr. Huntington.
Support.
We'll go back to Mr. Martin again. And not sure what happened to Mr. Martin. Mr. Griffith.
Support.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, you have support, favorable recommendation for PZA 21-0001.
Thank you. Next, miscellaneous. Is there any miscellaneous business?
We do have approval of minutes prior to that, sir.
Okay. Oh, flip the page here. We have a motion for approval of the minutes.
To the chair, this is Commissioner Culpepper.
Yes.
I move that we approve minutes for January the 13th, January the 20th, and January the 27th.
This is Commissioner Willis. I support.
All right. We have the motion by Commissioner Culpepper, supported by Commissioner Willis. We have a roll call vote on the approval of the minutes.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Stevens Gunn.
Support.
Mr. Willis.
Support.
Mr. Culpepper.
Support.
Mr. Huntington.
Support.
Mr. Martin, we'll try again. No, Mr. Martin. Okay. Mr. Griffith.
Support.
Okay, and you have support and approval of your minutes.
Okay. Next, we have the public comment.
Yep.
Opportunity.
So for the public, this is the time of the meeting in which you have an opportunity to address the commission on any particular items that you would like to bring up. You are limited to 3 minutes. If you do choose to speak, we do ask that you give your name and address for the record, and you can then make your comment. So with that, Mr. Chairman, we'll open up this portion and we'll wait a minute or so to see if we have anyone who would like to make a public comment. I'll be back with you shortly.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yeah, I'm not sure what happened there, sir. You disappeared from the attendee list, although you're still shown on my participant list.
Yeah, and I've been trying to speak since the First Amendment, first item.
Wow.
And I've called in 3 times to go through this, but nonetheless.
Oh, we can hear you now.
And I'm sorry, I couldn't. I had to turn off sound, so I didn't get the feedback before. Could you tell me where we are in the meeting?
We are at public comment, sir. Yeah, we've already addressed both of the items that were on the agenda, the rezoning request and the special use.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, it doesn't appear that we have anyone for public comment this evening.
Okay. Close the public comment portion there. Any miscellaneous items? No.
Yes, through the chair, I have 3 items. I just want to again remind the commission commission in the audience that we are in week 4 of 8 for the master plan public input. Again, if you haven't already been on answering questions, anytime that you get on, you can go back to previous week's questions and fill those out. Secondly, we're anticipating our second virtual town meeting with Hubert Massey to review the LTU mosaic. Tentatively, we're looking at either Thursday, March 18th or Thursday, March 25th from 5 to 6 p.m. And once we have that finalized, we will send out a notice to the Planning Commission. And lastly, you should have received from my office some training opportunities for the Planning Commission. And I gave you each a budget and strongly encourage you to take advantage of that. We're asking that you register and pay for it yourself. Turn the receipt in after the exam or after your webinar with just some documentation that you attended, and we will get you reimbursed. And if there's any other questions on either of those 3 items, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Any other miscellaneous business?
Mr. Chairman, only that we do have a meeting scheduled for next Wednesday, March 3rd. We do have 5 items as part of that agenda, so we're looking at a busy March.
All right, sounds good. All right, at this time, this meeting is adjourned. See you next week.